Hi, y'all. I'm Jen Lewis.
I'm Ruben Gonzalez.
And we are launching a new series about all things market related. And how do you take that news and information and relay that to your clients? So subscribe now so that you don't miss a beat. So Ruben, there's a lot going on in the news right now, but what are some of the key things that we're going to talk about today?
I'd say there's three big stories right now. First being what's going on with construction and inventory, right? It's affecting a lot of things. I think there's a lot of questions about where we're going. The second would be, we just got data on home sales for May, so let's put that in context and understand what's going on. And the third would be mortgage rates, because that's always a relevant conversation.
That is a big topic, those mortgage rates.
That's right.
Awesome. So the first one being, let's talk about inventory, because inventory seems to be a funny thing these days, right? It should seem like there's more houses on the market with things slowing down, and yet there isn't. And there's a couple of contributing factors to that. Talk about that.
Yeah, so there's a few things going on, right? We've got still a surprising amount of demand. The economy's been strong, unemployment's still solid. We haven't really seen anything flinch on that side.
Right.
We've got demographic reasons, right, why demand's remaining strong. Millennials are reaching their peak buying age, the largest cohort of our population right now. So there's a lot of pressure there on the demand side that's still just sort of lurking in the background and showing up every time we see something happen, right?
Absolutely.
On the other side of the coin, mortgage rates obviously are keeping people locked into their mortgages. So we're not seeing a lot of listing activity, unfortunately, so that's keeping inventory levels low. And on top of that, over the last decade or so, we think there's been a pretty substantial underbuilding of new homes. There's been a few different estimates out there about it. Even just looking at historical trends, you see potentially an underbuilding of between 2 and 3 million homes. And then the chief economist at Freddie Mac recently put out some research that estimated almost 4 million homes based off of things like historical vacancy rates and just trying to estimate how many empty houses kind of there should be at any given time to keep the market kind of flowing.
Sure.
We all know that builders got burned during the last housing cycle, right? So as we go into this one, they've been fairly cautious. We knew they had been underbuilding going into the pandemic. Things had finally started to pick up. And then now coming out of it with housing prices again starting to slow down, they pumped the brakes hard as soon as they saw anything going on. So the good news from this past month is we actually saw single-family home rates tick back up to what we consider like the historical average. It was one of the biggest jumps we've seen in almost 10 years in new home construction in a single month. So yeah, builder confidence is up for the first time. So with mortgage rates having remained at least relatively stable, and because of the low demand or the low supply in existing homes, we've seen builders kind of now put their foot, it seems like, back into the market, which will be a positive for inventory.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think is most important in this whole conversation is we don't want people to buy homes and then sell them next year. We expect a buyer to hold on for a little longer so that the economy is going to adjust itself out at some point. But the other thing I also talk a lot to my clients about with these factors in mind is that really at the end of the day, think of a garden hose and the water should be flowing through it normally, right? We've gone through cycles of buyer and seller markets, but we've been on an uptick of a seller's market for super long time, right? Over 10 years. And somehow we got a kink in that line where this lack of inventory, now it's being added to by people not moving because mortgage rates have gone up, doesn't stop the flow that's coming in there, right? All those millennials, all the people who haven't purchased because of the uncertainty. So that's really part of what's causing that confidence. And there's some other good news, right? NAR released some numbers about home sales this last month that were pretty positive. Talk about that.
Yeah, so sales were relatively flat from April to May. That's good, right? Like that's seasonally adjusted figures. When we look at the sort of seasonality of things, which has been an ongoing conversation for the last couple of years, seeing weird things, we're back to what we would say is like a more normal seasonal pattern. Sales were up unadjusted about 20% from April going into May.
So 20% in sales from this April to this May versus last year when things were a little bit different, right? Everything was sort of in a decline this time of year.
That's right. We didn't see normal seasonal patterns really in sales last year. We just saw sort of a steady decline as mortgage rates had begun, ticking up.
Yeah, that makes sense. So good news. Sales have gone up 20%, which if you're out there selling houses right now, you're probably feeling that. And yet we still have this inventory problem and those pesky mortgages. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so we On the inventory side, again, we were about 3 months of supply this last month, according to NAR. The total number of homes in the market was down, I believe, about 6% compared to the previous year.
Wow.
So still, that's still a challenge. And that's one of the main reasons, in combination with mortgage rates, why home sales totals are down about 20% from last year in May. So May to May, looking at last year, down about 20%.
Well, and as you said, mortgage rates are at play here because people who bought last May, what were those mortgage rates like? Probably in the 4s, right? They were
Right.
much different than they are today. So today, what do mortgage rates look like?
Yeah, right now we're sitting at around 6.9% as of, we're filming this. That seems to be where they were this morning. In June, they averaged about 6.7% for the month. And in May, they were about 6.4%. So we've seen things kind of stabilize this year around that, like sort of bouncing around that 6.5% rate with,
Sure.
little runs up to towards 7, down toward 6.3. I think that's probably going to be the pattern for the next couple of months. The projections right now are still for rates to come down a bit by the end of the year, but as the economy remains more and more resilient, in the face of the Federal Reserve raising rates, those forecasts sort of have become increasingly more pessimistic about mortgage rates.
Yeah. Though mortgage rates seem high to a lot of us, to me, my first house I bought in 2009, we were in the 6% bracket then. The historical average, we're not that far off from, right?
Yeah, that's right. Historically looking back, 6% has not been that abnormal. We just came off of like some very odd mortgage rates, right?
Very
Historically, the lowest we've seen. So even looking forward, when people talk about we think mortgage rates are going to trend down, we're not talking about we're going to go back to 2.9%. We're talking in the upper 5s potentially in the near future. So I think that's relevant to kind of put that into context of like, what does that mean when you hear mortgage? In the future, mortgage rates may be lower. Well,
Sure.
You're talking, we may go from 6.5 to 6. We may go from 6.3 to 5.9. You're not talking about anytime soon going back to 3.5%, back to 2%. Like those days are gone unless something terrible happens to the economy, right? And then we're having like a whole other conversation
Very different,
here
yes.
about what's going on.
Yeah. So I think all in all, at the end of this, as a realtor, I'm going to recommend my clients talk to that great mortgage lender, that person that's going to really walk them through this information and figure out what's best for their finances. And on the other side, as a realtor, I should understand that homes are moving, things are selling. So it could absolutely be the right time for your client to buy or sell right now based on their financial situation.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Ruben, this was a great conversation. Thank you for all of the great information you brought. And we hope you enjoyed it too. If you loved it, let us know in the comments what you loved. Also, what do you want to hear? And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we'll be doing this every single month.